Hey, what's goody Frye gang? Alright, so originally this wasn't going to be its own video, but Splatoon 2 just has so much goddamn cut and unused content that it would be way too long. It'd take way too long to cover everything in one video, so I'm going to split it up. This video is going to be focusing all of the cut and unused content from the global test fire, Splatoon 2 global test fire. And it's actually got quite a bit of content in here. I was actually surprised at how much it actually has. But it will be covering Splatoon 2 next. That might also be multiple videos since there is a lot of content. I don't know if I'll be able to fit it all in one video. But for this one, obviously it's a lot less than the base game, but there's still quite a bit. And to start, we have some salmon run icons. So here we can see the early versions of the salmon. It's colored to look more like an actual salmon, and like in the final game it's just all orange, as well as the golden egg is a lot more finished and refined. It actually looks like it has a 3D model instead of just this 2D texture. Next are actually the tutorial icons for Splatoon 2. When you first start up the game and you're learning the controls and everything, it'll show you. For the global test fire, there was an early version of the Joy-Cons to kind of help you with the controls. And for some reason, the Joy-Cons here are both black, despite not being an official black variant. So to this day, we still haven't gotten officially black Joy-Cons. The closest we got was gray, but this is all black. So maybe again, they just didn't put much thought into it because this was an early build of it. So they created the icon first and we're going to color it later, but then decided to scrap it, or this was just a placeholder, and then they created the ones we have now. And even the switch screen itself looks more like a square than a rectangle that it actually is. So that one's kind of interesting. Not really sure why they shrunk it down like that. But here we have a couple of main menu icons. Here we have some icons for the shoal, the 3 shops, and I'm actually not sure what these arrow ones are at the bottom or on the very right. I'm not too sure. I don't remember what these are for. Maybe I'm just stupid and it's very obvious, but I don't remember what those are for. But we actually do have some special ability icons. So these are early icons for some of the specials. So as you can see, splashdown, baller, curling bomb launcher, and bubble blower. Baller kind of just looks like a Gatling nozzle, I guess. Not the nozzle, but you know, the barrel of a Gatling gun. So that, or kind of just looks like caviar. Is that caviar? Is that the fish eggs? I don't remember. I don't know. Curling bomb launcher looks very weird. I'm not sure what's up with that. And then bubble blower kind of just also looks like caviar, just not on a plate. But we do have an early icon for the splat dualies. You can see they're actually not that different from what we have now, except for that it looks like in the early icon, the ink tanks on the bottom or the back of them, I guess, are a lot smaller, and the black part is a lot bigger. So they just kind of swapped that around somewhere in development. Now we also have some early gear for Salmon Run. Here we have 4 different files for the headgear. They're all identical, they're just different colors, so you can see them here. So these are a little bit different from what we have already. In the final version, it's just a regular hat, but the brim is a different color from the rest of the hat, as to where we can see here. The brim and the front of the hat are the same, and it looks like there's eyes on here, where on the final version we just have the Grizzco logo. And the color of the hat actually doesn't ever change, even if our ink color changes in Salmon Run. But here in the early versions we can see there's different colors for presumably different, actually we get different slop suits, right? Different colored slop suits. I don't know about Splatoon 2. I know we do in 3, but I don't know about 2. But I guess these are to coincide with the different colored suits that we get. And speaking of the suits, we have an early version of the orange slap suit here, but we only have this one. There's only code in the game for the orange suit. And it's pretty damn identical to what we have now, except for the boots here are white. Those kind of look like socks, but usually the boots would be there, and those are all green, as well as the gloves would go all the way up to where the sleeves are, and those would also be green. So maybe those are different textures just layered on top of this one. I'm not sure. But then we also have a placeholder for a Splatfest T replica with the kanji for temporary over the top of it. And we actually have data for several early versions of weapons that were in the base game. So in the test fire, we have data for a lot of the main weapons, all of them being Splatbrella, Tentabrella, Undercoverbrella, Clash Blaster, Squeezer, Lingza, Two Goob, YouTuber, Dapples, Dually Squelch, Dark Tetras, Glugas, Dual Squelcher. Okay, so apparently the Dual Squelcher had data in the game. I don't think that was in 2. I think those were changed to the Dually Squelchers, right? I'm pretty sure. We also had E-Liter, Splatter Scope, and Hero Shot. And then the sub-weapons, Seeker. So Seeker was apparently in there too. I guess maybe for testing purposes, or it was supposed to be in the game, kind of like Dual Squelcher. But I'm not sure on that one. And then for specials, we have Ink Armor, Baller, Bubble Blower, and Bomb Launcher. And another thing, Octoling data was also in the test fire. So for like playable Octolings, there was data in the game for them all the way back in the test fire. So I don't know if they already had Octo expansion planned before the game even came out and the data was just already in there, or they originally wanted to have them playable but decided to save it for Octo expansion, or at that time save it for some future DLC that they didn't know what it would be yet, perhaps. So the Octoling Boy uses a placeholder Inkling Boy model with the rival Octoling eyes, along with unique eyebrows not seen in any of the other models. Although hard to see, it can be discovered that said eyebrows lack a special form of mapping used on most Inkling/Octoling player models, which is used to simulate lighting, causing the eyebrows to take on a flatter appearance. Although this can only be properly seen when viewed up close with certain colors applied to it, such as the slightly darker shades of green and blues, an early version of the Octoling Boy hairstyle also exists for it. The textures for the rival Octoling Boy hair are often found to be blurry and not of the same quality as most models. Because of these models and textures, we can assume that with some major edits to the models, this is what a male rival Octoling would look like. Something never before seen in the history of Splatoon, neither in concept art or in any iteration of the first or second game. So we've never seen a rival Octoling boy. It's always been an Octoling girl. So we've never actually seen this hairstyle before, and here it can actually be loaded into the game using the debug menu, and this is what it looks like. So it's actually a pretty cool, that hairstyle is pretty cool. It's kind of just like a ponytail almost, really, right? It's kind of just like a ponytail. It's a nice hairstyle. So apparently Splatoon 2 had a lot of like Octoling hairstyles that we never got in game. I'm gonna cover those when I get to the cut content of Splatoon 2, but it's really a shame that we got robbed. All right, we got robbed of these hairstyles. And for whatever reason, like the Octoling boy, the Octoling girl also loads a placeholder Inkling model as well. Even stranger, the Octoling girl borrows the Inkling boy assets. So that's kind of strange. But then the hair as well is the rival Octoling girl. Same with the Octoling boy, the Octoling girl can also be loaded in-game with the debug menu and is shown below. Like the rival male, the hair textures are also shown to be blurry and of a somewhat lower quality compared to the final counterparts. Unlike the rival male, the eyebrows and other smaller details appear to be intact. So I actually like this hairstyle quite a bit. Yeah, like I said, the hair does look kind of blurry, but I like this like big bulbous ass hairstyle with that one giant suction cup on the top. It looks pretty cool. I really wish we got more than just 2 hairstyles for Inkling boys and Inkling girls, or Octoling boy and girl after Octo expansion. I'm glad we got more in Splatoon 3, but even then, there were a lot of hairstyles that we were supposed to get into that just never made it into. And I'm pretty sure some of them got reused for 3, but I'm pretty sure there's still a lot more that we haven't gotten from Splatoon 2. And now we have some early map previews. So here we can see an early version of the map of Inkopolis Square. Looks relatively the same. Obviously looks a little more barren since this is an early version. Here we can see an early version of the reef, and as we know, the bridge here is different. In game it's actually concrete, while in the test fire it was made of wood. And this actually has an in-universe reason. Y'all may have heard about this already, but I remember Pearl, she was singing so loud that her voice shattered the bridge. Like the bridge just completely got obliterated from Pearl being so loud, and so it was rebuilt into a concrete bridge. I just love that, bro. Actual like game development, like game decisions have in-universe lore. It's so insane. I swear, Splatoon is like the only series that does stuff like, as far as I know. As far as like every series that I know, Splatoon has the deepest and like most expansive and convoluted lore. It's insane. Nothing comes close to Splatoon lore. Just nothing does it like Splatoon, alright? It's amazing. And here we have an early model of Starfish Main Stage, which I'm very interested in, since Starfish Main Stage is my favorite map in the entire series. Alright, I am still waiting for this shit to come to Splatoon 3. I really hope it does. I am praying so hard that this comes to Splatoon 3. I absolutely love this map, and it looks so different, especially like the main stage. Yeah, this is the spawn. Even the spawn looks a little different. This ramp to the right never went up into the middle right here, as far as I remember. Yeah, because it would just go down up to another platform, a glass platform. So this ramp right here to the left on the very right never led up there. So it'd be nice if we could get some aerial shots, but this is the only one we have. So like the top of it looks very different from what we have now. God, I love Starfish Main Stage. I want it to come back so bad. Next we have Sturgeon Shipyard. Now this one's still relatively the same, but if you look down there towards the middle where the rising platform is at, usually there's like a little platform right there in front of it, or at least like a wall right there, right before the grate meets the wall. There's like another little wall in front, and that looks like it's gone. And even further down you can see there's a ledge right there that's usually only on the left side of each side. So wherever you're spawning at, on the left side there's that little wall, and on the right it's just a ramp. So maybe it looks like that they kind of swapped it mid-development, where they just changed what side that little wall is on. But other than that, everything else seems pretty much the same, except for, you know, like I said, the grates and that little ledge right there. Next is Inkblot Art Academy, which also had a different name in the files of the test fire, which I will get to in a second. But here it looks very barren and just basic, obviously because the map wasn't finished. This is just an early model of it, and this is the Splat Zones version of the map, because we know in the middle right there there's that giant wall, and it looks like it was kind of angled differently. Normally when you come off of the little platform right here off your base, the wall is parallel to that ledge, but it looks like it's kind of rotated like 45 degrees to the right, or counterclockwise I guess. So it's like the corner is facing the ledge instead of the wall, and then the glass box is kind of like blocking you off, so you have to go around it to get up there. So I mean, shouldn't they kind of be swapped so the glass wall is on the right side so the enemies can't just freely shoot you, like your opponents, because you have to come around this wall to get to mid, or you can just go around on the other side. Okay, so I guess it's not that too big of a deal because you can just go on your left side, and then that would also make it easier to get into the enemy base. So okay, so maybe that is a good addition, a cool addition, just having the glass walls on left side instead of the right. And here we have an early version of the spawning grounds. It looks pretty much the same. It's the exact same map, except for I don't think right here in the middle where those two ramps are up, kind of like the top right part where those ramps, I don't think that first ramp from the middle going up to that little ledge, I don't think that first ramp was ever there, or maybe it was positioned differently. For some reason that just looks off and I can't really tell why, but everything else is relatively the same. And we can actually see some an early version of salmon run gear in the middle there where the golden egg box, I guess, normally is, with like the orange around it. Apparently there is some salmon run gear in the middle there, but I can't really see it because these images are only in one type of resolution. There's no higher resolution for them, so it's kind of hard to see once you zoom in on it. Okay, next we have some unused text for salmon run grades. The names were changed. Here we can see the test fire and final versions. Apprentice was originally wannabe, part-timer was rookie, go-getter was savant, or go-getter was real deal, and overachiever was savant. And like I said earlier, Inkblot had a different name in the test fire. It was called Silver Sea Art Academy, and Starfish main stage actually had a different name called Starfish Soundstage. And we actually have a ton of unused quotes, like news quotes for Pearl and Marina for some of the stages. So I'm gonna read those off right now. So for the test fire, Pearl would say, "Yo, my best friend took me to the amazing cake shop in the Reef the other day." And Marina responds, "But I don't remember going to a cake shop." A lot of these are relatively the same from the test fire to the launch, and with just a couple words changed. But some of the most notable ones are, for Muscle Forge Fitness, Pearl says, "The jellies at the gym can climb the rock walls faster than I can. What's with that?" Marina responds, "Well, those jellyfish do probably have a couple of inches on you, short stack." In the final version, they're relatively the same except for they took out the short stack comment from Marina, because apparently this extra jab was too rude even for the more acerbic personality Marina had in early English versions. Yeah, in the early versions of Splatoon 2, Marina was kind of a bitch towards Pearl. She was like hella rude. So the developers actually like went in and changed Marina's whole personality because she was too rude. Another one that changed was also for Muscle Forge, where Pearl says, "Rock climbing jellyfish are too cute. I just want to splat their little faces off." Marina responds, "Pearl, take a deep breath and put down the splatter shot." And then in the launch version, she said, "Rock climbing jellies are too cute. I just want to splat their little faces off." Marina, "Whoa, Pearl, I'm confiscating your splatter shot until you chill out." And then these next quotes were just completely changed. Pearl says, "Wonder if I should become a member here and really start to get chiseled." Marina, "What? But I thought being the toned one was my thing." Or in the launch version, Pearl says, "A membership to this place costs an arm and a leg." Marina, "Yeah, but at least the arm and leg will be jacked." As for the early weapon designs, these ones are kind of cool. First, we have Tentarella. Now, it's relatively the same, except for if you notice, if you look closely, the mesh on like the front, I guess the mesh with the see-through part, in the final game it's green, but its early designs it was going to be like a darker blue. You can kind of see like that half oval right there on the front of the shield is a lot darker than it is in the final game. So it actually didn't really change all too much, just the green is changed to blue. Next, we actually have Explosh, and this one's actually kind of cool. The Explosh and Custom Explosh have early models in version 3.0.0, while the Custom looks fairly close to the final version. The base Explosh is an earlier mesh, looking noticeably smaller compared to the final. So here you can see, I'm gonna have all four of them right here. Both Explosh and then the Custom and its early version right here. So you can see how different they look, especially the Custom to the original. The early Explosh model kind of looks like an order weapon, you know? Like in for the side order trailer, we have those white dualies and the white stamper that we see Agent 8 holding. This looks like it could be a side order weapon right here. The white Explosh, that actually kind of goes hard. It's actually pretty cool. But you can see they're not too different. They just had the designs tweaked a little bit, and you know, we're actually given some textures, like the stickers, the colors, and just the overall shape of it is pretty different. Now next we have Ballpoint, and this one is kind of throws me off a little bit. Also in version 3.0.0, Ballpoint had a different design, both vanilla Ballpoint and Nouveau. And these weren't even finished, alright? They were still work in progress. The Ballpoint Splatling Nouveau didn't have a unique texture at the time, and instead it just changes the color through material parameter. So you can see on the left for the vanilla, it's kind of like grayish white for the Gatling part of it, I guess, the barrels. But for Nouveau, they're just darker. And if you notice, it doesn't have that like plastic pen casing around it, I guess. Since Ballpoint is based off of a ballpoint pen, it doesn't have that like plastic encasing on the outer. So it kind of looks kind of uncomfortable. I don't know. Next, I'm actually was surprised that this was here, but Kensa Luna Blaster. This is my OG main right here. I miss K Luna, alright? I miss Cluna Blaster. I want Cluna so bad. We were so close. We almost had it in Splatoon 3. Alright, we got the Splatoon back, but we got fucking Ultra Stamp instead of Inkstorm. Now, that's probably better than Inkstorm on Luna, but I just played that weapon for so long that it feels weird using anything other than Inkstorm on Luna. So I already don't like Ultra Stamp. So we were so close, we almost had Cluna back. But I'm glad with what we have now for Luna Neo. Hopefully we'll get a new Luna kit again in the future. But as for the early version of the Cluna Blaster, we can see the text on the side is different. It's the same text, but here it's like cut off halfway where the white and the black kind of meet, and then the rest of the text is replaced by like a black strip to kind of just yin and yang, I guess, for the black and white. The black on the white and then the white on the white text on the black. As where in the final version, the text is just extended and there is no red clothespin on it that we are used to. This next one is actually very interesting. The Grizz Cobrella. The Grizz Cobrella used to have Splattershot bottles on them. I'm not too sure what's up with that. This is a very early model, version 1.0.0, lacking a lot of the extra details of the final version. Because as we know, in the final game, the bottles, I guess, they kind of look more like pill capsules or like little pill bottles. But in this early version, we can see it has Splattershot bottles on it, which is kind of funny. It looks wacky. Imagine if that was like the actual design for it. And next we get to sub weapons, and this one looks disgusting. All right, this is Fizzy Bomb. This is what Fizzy Bomb was supposed to look like. Splodocan looked completely different. Now the Fizzy Bomb has an early model in 3.1.0 looking a lot more basic. The top and bottom of the can has a bird poking fun at the weapon's codename, Peel, which is both a common Japanese placeholder name and the Japanese onomatopoeia for a bird's chirp. So that's kind of cool. I like that. All right, even in the placeholder, they're putting like little references and everything. So that's cool. I wish they kind of kept like the little bird symbolism, I guess, on the final version, but birds and soda cans don't really go well together, so that wouldn't really make much sense. Also, Splotacan would have been so much cooler of a name than Fizzy Bomb. Now, I mean, yes, it is a fizzy bomb, but since Splatoon is all about puns, I mean, Splotacan for soda can and explode because when you shake it, it explodes from the fizz. So Splotacan would have been so much cooler. Like, I just call it Splotacan now. I don't even call it Fizzy Bomb. I just unironically call it Splotacan now because I just think that's a cooler name. But next we have some unused weapons, and a lot of these are actually from Splatoon 1, and we actually have a couple of new ones as well. Starting off, Dual Squelcher. As we know, Dual Squelcher was replaced by the Dually Squelchers. There still exists a model and weapon parameters for the original Dual Squelch within the files. Never had any weapon database entry in retail builds, but it did in the test fire. So that's interesting. It had a database entry in the test fire, but not in the actual game. So I guess they were planning on putting it in like during the test fire, and then once the final game came out, they decided not to, but it still has data and models and parameters and everything for it in the game. They even had a custom version for it, as you can see right here. So they really wanted to have Dual Squelch in the game, but you know, since dualies were the new weapon type that were introduced for this game, this was the whole game's like big new addition was dualies, so it makes sense to make the Dual Squelch Dually Squelch. So that's a cool addition. Maybe we'll see Dual Squelch come back in Splatoon 3. I really doubt, but it would be kind of funny to have all three Squelch, the original Squelch, Dual Squelch, and then Dually Squelch. Next are sub-weapons, and there's only two in the game that we didn't get: Seeker and Disruptor. Now, despite being the only real removed sub-weapon, the Seeker still has a lot left over in Splatoon 2, even having a model in the test fire. The reason for this is that it was intended to be used in story mode and Salmon Run, kind of like how Splashdown is in Splatoon 3, except for it's not used in Salmon Run. Anyway, Seeker still has an entry in the sub-weapon database. Even in the latest versions, however, it is non-functional without manual fixing. It calls for the curling bomb model in retail builds and still has no sound effects. So when you actually get it working and use it, it just takes the curling bomb model. Next, also we have Disruptor, and this was ultimately replaced by Toxic Mist. The Disruptor still remains in the sub-weapon database even in the latest versions. Just like the Seeker, it is non-functional without manual fixing, but most of the code still remains. It calls for the Toxic Mist model in retail builds. Now we get on to special weapons. Before I get on to the completely new ones, I'm gonna just go over all of the ones we already know about. So, as we know, Bomb Rush was replaced by Bomb Launcher. Even though it was replaced by Bomb Launcher, the Splatoon version of the special still functions perfectly, grabbing from the sub-weapon exactly as intended and lacks the 1-second sub-weapon prevention to prevent wasting ink at the end of the duration with the Bomb Launcher has. The only apparent problem is lack of UI pop-ups. Next we have Bubbler, which we know was reworked into Ink Armor, and just like Bomb Rush, the Splatoon version of Bubbler still functions to an extent in Splatoon 2. While the invincibility aspect works perfectly, you seem to be unable to share the bubble with other players. So perhaps we are going to just get Bubble as in Splatoon 1, and then it acts as Ink Armor and just applies to everyone. Does Bubbler already do that in Splatoon 1? I know absolutely nothing about Splatoon 1. It's sad, alright? As big of a Splatoon fan as I am, I know nothing about 1. Alright, I will be getting it soon, alright, don't worry. And a lot of y'all in the comments of the other videos saying that y'all still play Splatoon 1. So, like, when I get Splatoon 1, maybe I can make just like one big private lobby and we can all play together. That'd be so dope. That would be so cool. And plus, just free content. Everyone's having fun. Maybe we can be in a giant Discord call. I don't know. We'll have to figure all that out when it comes. But another one that was removed was Echolocator, which was reworked into Point Sensor. Due to the point sensor sub-weapon using the same tracking effect, the echolocator still functions to an extent. Strangely seems only track bots and completely ignores real players, but other than that it works perfectly. Next two are Ink Strike and Trizooka. They're not really too functional. Both of them are almost completely non-functional. As for Ink Strike, it slows down the player like intended, but you're unable to do anything beyond that until the special meter runs out. And for Inkzooka, it crashes the game if you try to use it. It literally just crashes the game. So that just shows how unfinished that they are. And the Killer Whale is actually in the game as well. Obviously we know that since Pearl uses Killer Whale, but this was the Splatoon 1 version. The only Splatoon special weapon to come back officially is the Killer Whale in the form of the Princess Cannon. Prior to version 4.9.0, there was an updated version of the original Killer Whale model in the files that were replaced by the Princess Cannon. So, of course, this makes sense. And Kraken was also supposed to be in Splatoon 2, but we know it wasn't in Splatoon 2 and it came back in 3. But just like Inkzooka and Ink Strike, Kraken is almost completely non-functional, and the camera shifts to below the stage and you can move around but not much else. So the camera kind of gets fucked a little. For the two new specials that we are apparently going to have, one is called Victory Rocket, and it is the objective weapon, so kind of like a Rainmaker, of the scrapped Rocket game mode. It's meant to be a rocket nozzle but uses the Stingray as a placeholder model. So I wasn't going to talk about this in the video, but I'll talk a little bit about it. I'll save it for whenever we get to it. There was a scrapped online game mode about some kind of rocket. Not too much information is known about it, but apparently we're going to use a special weapon like the Victory Rocket here to shoot a different rocket, and I'm not quite sure what it does. I don't remember what it does. And I think there's actually footage of that rocket nozzle, that Victory Rocket, and it's basically just like an infinite range Splash. It shoots at the same rate as Splash, but it has so much more range. So that would have been very scary. But the next one is actually called Big Bang, and I think I might know what this is. Big Bang found as a weapon bullet parameter file, but not mentioned anywhere else. It's unknown what this weapon was, but it was likely special or something related to a game mode. So with the little information that we have on this, I think it was actually it got reworked into the Rainmaker shot, because in Splatoon 1 the Rainmaker kind of was like Inkzooka, right, where it was just shot out an ink tornado, whereas in 2 and 3 when you charge the Rainmaker, it shoots a big shot and then explodes once it makes contact with the ground. So maybe that's what it was, because it is a big bang and it's related to a game mode, the Rainmaker. So maybe that was reworked into the Rainmaker shot. At least that's what I think. We have like no information on that. We have like no information on that, so that's unconfirmed. Next, we have some unused textures, and here we actually have a very early version of Snapper Canal. Now this is very interesting. Various parts are textured with an orange placeholder X mark. An axis pivot is visible in the distance. The aiming reticle is still present, indicating that this may have been a thumbnail captured by the OBG setting originally. So yeah, this is a very early version of Snapper Canal, and it looks relatively the same, except the biggest difference is right here in the middle. There are these two pillars with grates on them. And I think there's a wall missing, like by that square in the water. So The map actually looks relatively the same, but obviously there are a couple changes. Like down here on the right, it leads down into some water, which I think it extended out further before the water, or I guess the ramp's right there. But it's still relatively the same. Obviously I'm gonna have like comparison on screen right now of the finished and beta versions. But we also have a similar one for Manta Maria. And for the code name for Snapper Canal was Kawa00, and the code name for Manta Maria is Pillar00, which would later be released as Manta Maria. The boat is mostly textured with a blue placeholder X mark, and the spawn point seems to be placed incorrectly. Next we have some interesting Splatfest stuff. Now the rice and bread icons that were used in a Splatfest in Splatoon 1 have dummy images in Splatoon 2, despite us never getting that Splatfest in Splatoon 2. And just like I talked about in the other video, the egg and omelet image is still here. I think I talked about this in the very first cut content video, but this has been in every game, or it's in Splatoon 3 as well, with just an added third image there of just a boiled egg, presumably because we have 3 idols now. So maybe at some point we are going to get a Splatfest, like, oh, how do you like your eggs done? Omelet, over easy, or boiled? Something like that. It's such a free and easy Splatfest, so it's been in every single game. I'm not sure why they haven't done anything with it yet. And next we actually have a Japanese exclusive Splatfest image here. Images for the Japanese exclusive Red Fox and Green Tanuki Maruchan Ramen Splatfest in Splatoon, the first game. These are leftovers inside the Splatfest terminal model. So these are like actual real life Splatfest collaborations, which I think were cool. It's a shame we haven't had any in Splatoon 3 yet, but Splatoon 1 and 2 had like real life like collabs, like real life Splatfest stuff, so that one was pretty cool. We also have some early versions of some of the ability tickets for Ink Resistance, Quick Super Jump, and Bomb Defense maybe? Or Ink Saver. This could be Ink Saver Sub. Yeah, this looks like it's Ink Saver Sub in the middle here. They're relatively the same, except for obviously the final versions don't have the text and they're colored differently. But other than that, they're still relatively the same. And surprisingly, there's only one unused texture for Octo Expansion. I was kind of disappointed since I love Octo Expansion. I was expecting there to be a little bit more, but all we have is this unused mem cake. An otherwise unseen sanitized Octotrooper icon called Test can be found among the memcake textures. Its departure from the rest of the memcake's stylized designs suggests this texture is nothing more than a test file. Interestingly, this icon's color scheme slightly differs from that of the sanitized Octotroopers seen in-game. So it was most likely just a test file, but it would have been cool to have it been turned into an actual memcake. And here we have some Salmon Run textures. The unused model Fish Octa contains 4 textures with no accompanying model data. So this first one's actually pretty interesting. A salmonid icon texture similar to the one seen in the background of the Salmon Run matchmaking screen. A duplicate of this texture called Simple also exists. Its file name has to do with the salmonid's Japanese name being Shake. And I think it was supposed to be Sake. I think they just added an H in here by accident, but I'm pretty sure it's Sake. And then we have another salmonid icon texture, except it oddly doesn't have a face, and it's called Pooling Big Fish. Well, that first texture we see on the left right here is called Sake. So maybe that was going to be used, or like a placeholder for a boss salmonid, not really sure. And we actually have some test right here, an early version of the mini Daktronics memcake texture. The beta version looks like it was hand drawn, while the final version obviously looks like an actual image here. Everything is a lot crisper, like the lines are a lot crisper, everything is neater, more organized. and just more defined here. And then this one I thought was pretty funny. All right, we have this little test icon right here, and the file name for it is fucked icon test. The fucked icon test, punk's not dead. So I thought that one was funny to include. And then this one's actually kind of cool. We have a bronze badge for squid beats, but it was never used in game because silver and gold are the only ones that are in the final game. But it's interesting to see that they did originally have a bronze badge in here. And next we have quite a few unused ink colors for multiple things. Here we have an unused ink color for Turf War. It's like a bright blue, like a teal kind of, and then a yellow. And then we have some Octo Canyon colors with like a lavender, with like a very muted pink with a very bright pink. This color on the right here, I love this pink. That is like my favorite shade of pink. The super bright neon is really nice. Now this one is relatively the same one, except for the colors seem a bit darker, both of them actually. And then again, the same colors but just even darker, except for looks like they kind of just swapped sides. Like the purple became pink, pink became purple. And then this one actually, I feel like we've seen this one in game before in like one of the Splatfests. I could be mistaken, but I feel like this is a color scheme we've seen before. Like a very deep gold with also a very deep purple. And this one's actually really nice. We have some scrapped Octo expansion color as well. Like a very bright turquoise greenish color, like beige or cream right here. So perhaps that green was the green right here, or this turquoise, whatever that is, was going to be used for the Octarians, and then we'd use this weird cream color. I'm not sure what that would be for, but and then we have one more here for just orange and blue, but these ones don't have any parameters. And actually there were quite a few maps that didn't make it into Splatoon 2, even though they had data in the game for them. So starting with Camp Triggerfish was originally going to be in the game from launch, but they scrapped it and it returned on April 24th, 2018 to coincide with version 3.0. Urchin Underpass never made it in. And the Reef is one of the most interesting ones, since the Reef was the first map developed for the game, so it's possible this was used in one of the demo versions. Yeah, so the Reef was the first map ever developed for Splatoon 2, so it had an earlier demo version that was scrapped and later reworked into the main map that we have in game. Mahi Mahi was going to be in the game, it was actually one of the first maps developed, but it was omitted from early versions of the game. So early on they decided to just scrap Mahi Mahi and just bring it back in Splatoon 3. Flounder never made it in, as we know. Hammerhead never made it in. Snapper Canal, the Aqueduct stage that was seen in the direct, wouldn't appear until October 7th, 2017. Kelp Dome again was scrapped and then returned September 16th, 2017. Anchovy Games returned on July 12th, 2018. Manta Maria has since been released, though it is unclear if this entry was used for the final map. Museum never made it in. Piranha Pit returned on March 30th, 2018. Bluefin Depot, Salt Spray Rig never made it in. And speaking of Bluefin Depot, there was a data mine a couple weeks ago on the new season for Splatoon 3, and we are getting a brand new stage, but Bluefin Depot is also coming back in Splatoon 3 along with two brand new specials called Pogo and Chimney. So that was pretty hype. I don't know where they got the information from. I already made a video on it, so it's a couple videos ago, so you can easily find it if you go to my page. But Bluefin Depot is actually returning in Splatoon 3, so that's pretty hype. Black Belly Skate Park returned on October 27th, 2017. Arowana Mall returned February 2nd, 2018, and Walleye Warehouse returned December 15th, 2017. And then we also had, there's some Japanese exclusive gear. I'm sure you've heard about this plenty of times already, but there was a collaboration between Splatoon 2 and Korokoro magazine, which is a Japanese gaming magazine. Only in Japan though, so the 2 runs of gear were made available for the Japanese comic Korokoro magazine, where the codes will only work with the Japanese versions of the game, nor cannot be ordered via merch. Therefore making it unobtainable in other region versions. The localized names don't go unused due to them being seen during online battles. So even though we never got them outside of Japan, they still have translated names because Japanese players can still wear them. So the names for the gear are localized. And all the gear pieces they got were the Eminence Cuff, Milky Eminence Jacket, and Milky Imperials, and they were made available in November 2017 based off the outfit Emperor wore in the Splatoon manga. And the spy gear consisting of the Senyu suit, Senyu ink soles, Senyu goggles, Senyu headphones, Senyu specs were available in August 2018 issue of Korokoro based off the outfits that manga protagonists wore in the manga. That's about all for this video. At least there's still so much more content to cover. Something I forgot to mention in the last video is that we actually have an alternate like mid-development layout for Gobi Arena, and in here we can see it just looks more of like an outdoor basketball court than an inside one. And curiously, the inkling that we see here has both pigtail hairstyles at the same time, so it's just 3 pigtails, 2 on each side and then 1 on the back. It's kind of unsettling, but I just thought I'd mention it here since I did forget in the last video. So first we are starting with early headgear. So all of these are the designs that these headgears had before the final game, and a lot of them are pretty different while some of them are relatively similar to what they have in base game. So there's not too much to go on, just the different designs. So a lot of these aren't really going to be anything interesting. I will talk about something if it's substantial enough. But to start, we have the long build cap, which in its early design, it was more red instead of the blue that we have in game. This one's actually cool as it was actually reworked into the Blowfish Newsy in version 3.0.0, but it has an early design in 2.1.0. Shaped differently from the final and marked with the kanji temporary. The gear entry is work in progress and the brand is set as Splash Mob. Next is the do-rag cap and glasses. Now it says that the texture is slightly different, but I don't really see where. The design is relatively the same except just barely different texture, but I can't tell, but here's it side by side in case y'all can. Here we can see the Senyu Bon beanie. We can see over here on the right, that's its final version, and the one on the left is the one it had previously. So it was changed quite a bit. They gave it pins, they added pins to it, and the little grooves in between. You can see like the pattern of the grooves in the beanie. But other than that, it's still relatively the same. And this one is actually an interesting story. We have the tulip parasol added in 2.0.0, but it was a strange paper-like crumpled fedora in 1.0.0. It has no gear entry, and this headgear is strange in that it's placed far too high up, and so it floats over the player's head. The textures are brown, but it seems to render it completely white in-game normally due to the emission intensity material flag being set to max. So it used to look like this fedora, and then it got completely redesigned into what we have now. Here you can see. And not even that, but the gear got updated and separated into gendered models in 1.2.0. The female version is only slightly different, with a much stronger team color texture and a cream colored side instead of gray, and the male version is much more primitive. So it's cool how this got a complete redesign from a fedora to just like a bucket hat. This one's actually interesting as this is the Octo King face mask. I know it doesn't look like it, but in 3.0.0 it was added in as the Octo King face mask, but it was originally a Judd face mask, as you can see here in version 1.0.0. And the funny thing is that this actually shows up in an in-game advertisement as the Judd mask. So this was probably scrapped very late in development before the game released. But it's kind of cool to see that this model is still actually in the official final game. Just in an in-game advertisement, we can see the Inkling wearing it there. That one's pretty cool, I like that. Here we have the Digicamo Forge mask, and this one is also interesting. A lot of these are cool because they have extra like changes to them that you normally wouldn't think about. Like for this one, originally it was completely black mask with a Tony Kensa slogan found on some of their weapons in version 2.0.0. It was likely changed because a single color mask with text and a button on the back isn't the most visually interesting thing in the world. Everything else in the gear entry is placeholder except for the brand obviously being set to Tony Kensa and the ability being set to Inksaver sub. Here we have the Marinated headphones, which first I think is a cool name because obviously it's a play on Marina since those are her headphones. I think it's a pretty cool name, but it has a slightly different model in the unisex archive added in 3.0.0 as they were officially added in version 3.1.0, but the older model in 3.0.0 had the headphones leaning a bit more forward than the female version. I don't know what the hell happened with this. Apparently this was the null visor replica. Alright, this looks more like the tulip parasol than the damn null visor. It went from like a bucket hat to an astronaut helmet almost. I mean, we do have an astronaut helmet headpiece, but it's not this, but y'all know what I mean. This was a very big change. It's kind of cool though. This one's actually pretty cool. It is the golden toothpick that was added in version 3.1.0, but it had an earlier, more basic design in 3.0.0, lacking the ball of takoyaki. So it literally just looks like a toothpick, but without the big ass ball in the middle. Here we have a very, very early test version of the headlamp helmet. Headlamp helmet was introduced in 1.1.0, but this basic edit of it, I guess, was introduced in 1.0.0, and this is just a basic edit of the worker's cap with test written on it. This gear entry is a work in progress with no brand and no unique ability to find. Here's another interesting case of a big revamp. This pumpkin mask right here was reworked into the little devil horns in 4.1.0, and I'm not really too sure why they did that, since this pumpkin mask would kind of just fit better with Splatoon as a whole, and for, you know, Halloween fests. I'm pretty sure a pumpkin mask would fit better than some devil horns. Halloween's all about pumpkins and shit. But either way, I like the devil horns that we have now, but it would have also been cool to have this pumpkin mask in game. Next, we move on to the clothing. Here we have the Fresh Octo Tee. The one on the left and in the middle are the older designs from version 2.0.0, but it was changed into the design we have now all the way on the right in 3.1.0. The graphic tee is completely different, or the graphic on the tee is completely different, and the pin is a recolor of the one from the original basic tee instead of a unique one. And the eye coloration on the pin, it being colored pink, is intentional as indicated by the graphic on the back of the tee. Next we have the white Deca logo tee, and this actually looks very different from what we have in a base game, its final logo. Added has the white Deca logo tee in 1.0.0, but the gender labeled archives have completely different pieces of gear that occupy the slot. The diffuse texture is different even between the two, so it was probably replaced by the final before the original gear was finalized. So yeah, I was originally going to have a male and female version here. You can see on the left the female version since it's slimmer waist, and then the male version next to that. They also had different text, and the text was also different colored, as well as the zinc logo down on the bottom right was also different. Another huge remake is the Anaki Pulpo Pick tee. What is it with these names? But it was added in version 3.0.0, but it was a completely different blue graphic tee in 2.0.0. The brand tag being covered on the bottom right means this wasn't worked on very much before being replaced, since the texture couldn't be refined to even include a brand tag. So the gear entry is a work in progress with no unique ability to find and a placeholder price. So this was changed very early on, since you can tell by how different it looks and without the logo, placeholder price or anything like that. This one is still relatively similar to the base one, but this one is supposed to be the Mrs. Shrug tee, and as you can see it has the Mr. Shrug tee in the logo, so I'm pretty sure during development they noticed that and just changed it. But that looks like really to only be the only that looks like to be really the only change for this one. It just had the wrong logo on it. In version 3.0.0 we got the League tee on the left and the Friend tee on the right. They are both additions to the Guddle Gear set in 2.0.0, and the first one actually using a pink coloration similar to the main Octo expansion pink. I don't think that has really any correlation, but I thought it was a nice detail to add. And if you notice with both of these graphic tees, they aren't contained within a circle like the rest of the Guddle Gear tees. So there's a couple interesting things about the Tentatek slogan tee. Obviously, first, the design looks very, very different, but it's actually a reversed version of the Crustware XXL using the standard tee model with a tag. Even more weirdly, the BFMDL is labeled with TES053, so it's unknown what slot the Crustware may have originally been used for. But the current label for this is TES054, and TES053 is actually the Friend tee that I just talked about in the previous section. So that's pretty interesting. These two are actually kind of weird. First, here on the left we have the black Guddle Gear LS, and you'd assume that the one on the right is called the white Guddle Gear LS, but that's actually not the case, and these aren't even Guddle Gear according to the files. For this first one, the black Guddle Gear, it oddly has a Guddle Gear tag on it, but it's set to Anaki in the files. So that one's kind of strange. And the same one with the white one here, which is called the Takaroka Crazy Baseball LS. That's not Guddle Gear or Takaroka, since this one is also set to Anaki. Here on the left, next to the Takaroka Crazy Baseball LS, we can see the final version in game. So like this is the actual Takaroka gear, while the one next to it, just to the left of it, that's the white version, and it was called Takaroka. It looks like the black Guddle Gear, but it's labeled as Anaki. These two were just so confusing. It's just so confusing trying to figure it all out, because they got the Guddle Gear logo, but they're named Anaki in the files, but they're actually from Takaroka. So yeah, that one was just kind of funny trying to figure out everything. It may not look like it, but this is actually an early version of the Kensa coat. I know it looks nothing alike, but it used to look more of like a blue satin jacket. It actually looks similar to the one I'm going to talk about next, but yeah, it's kind of wild to see how big of a change it was. So this kind of begs the question, was Kensa gear just supposed to look like regular gear, and then they decided to just make it unique and go the black white with the red? because this looks nothing like Kensa gear that we've seen, and Kensa gear has only ever been black, white, and red. It's never had any other like crossover or little one-off thing like an outlier. It's always just been consistently black, white, and red. So it's very funny to see that this is how the Kensa coat used to look like. And speaking of that next one, we have the Deep Octo Satin Jacket. It actually has multiple designs. So the one you're looking at on the very left is the 1.0.0 design. It's lacking any embroidery, so it looks just like a basic jacket. And then in version 2.1.0, it got this one in the middle with a different shade of pink and alternate embroidery. And then we finally, in version 3.0.0, got the one here on the far right as the final version of the gear. Another Kensa related one, we have the light bomber jacket right here, and this is on the left. You can see the early design it had in 1.0.0, and in the middle is the final design for 2.0.0, and it's actually a color inverted version of the Kensa pullover coat, except it obviously lacks the Tani Kensa logo on the sleeve pin. This one actually kind of pisses me off a little bit. Here on the left, we have the Milky Eminence jacket and Navy Eminence jacket. These are the early versions, and on the right, you can see those are their final versions. In the early version for the Milky, it has this gold band in the middle that isn't there. And then for the Navy, it's all black where the sleeves and everything were gold in the original version, or in the early version. And I'm so mad because the Milky Eminence jacket, and all of the other Milky stuff for that matter, is Japanese exclusive to the Korokoro collaboration that I already covered in last video. So only people in Japan get all the Milky stuff with the Eminence cuff, the Eminence, the Milky Eminence jacket. I think was what the Milky Eminence Emperors, whatever the shoes were called. But the entire outfit was just so clean, and we never got it. We weren't ever allowed to get it in 2 or 3. So I'm kind of mad that they get to step out in this clean ass outfit that we will never get. Here we see an early version of the custom painted F3 added in version 2.0.0. Here on screen we see it is an earlier design from 1.2.0 with different logos, and the creature on the back has a stylized kanji for temporary on its body. The gear entry appears to be complete aside from a placeholder price of $96,999 and is set to have the Inksaver main ability. These next two are early versions of the Kung Fu Zip Up on top and the Panda Kung Fu Zip Up on the bottom. Now, the Kung Fu Zip Up looks relatively the same, just obviously not as much detail since it is just a generic blank jacket model. But the more notable difference is the the Panda Kung Fu Zip Up, which you can tell is very different. Not only is it black and white instead of just all completely white, even the little tassels that hold the buttons together are colored black for the Panda. Next, we actually have two versions of the Senyu suit. All the way here on the left is its earliest version, the one in the middle is the revision, and then the one on the right is the final version that we have now. The very earliest version just has a slightly different mesh. There's not much difference between the three of these, but the earliest version has a slightly different mesh. The middle one is the revision that we got in version 3.0, and the notable difference is that it has no pin and no extra details on some of the textures. And then we finally got the one on the right, version 3.2.0. Next, we have the fishing vest that was added in version 2.0.0, but in its 1.0.0 version, it looked more like a generic silver and green vest. So nothing too insane. It looks more just like a hoodie, but with a platinum vest over top of it, whereas in the base game it looks like an actual vest, or fishing vest at least. Here we have the Hot House hoodie, and it's actually gone through quite a bit of change. Now again, like the one on the left is its earliest version, the one in the middle is its revision, and then the one on the right is the final version. Now it looks like they went from camo to more of like a tropical flower type of feel, and the first one on the left was its 1.2.0 version, and the gear entry is a work in progress with a placeholder price, and the brand being Firefin with the ability being special power up. Now it got a revision and updated in version 2.0.0, having even more uniquely colored sections and keeping the same splotchy theme, but with the blue changed to a cream. The ability was also changed to quick respawn, and then in version 3.0.0 we got what we have now on the far right. Just like the Null Armor visor, the Null Armor replica also has a different design, the earliest being on the left, the revision in the middle, and the current on the right. Instead of just saying that every time, I mean, I'm sure y'all already know, when I have the three pieces, it's going to be the earliest, the revision, and then the final, so I don't need to be saying that every time. But its earliest version was in 3.0.0, and then the one in the middle actually was also in the same version, 3.0.0, so they changed it relatively soon. And then we have the final version, which came in 3.1.0. The only difference between the revision and the final is that the mesh and textures are just slightly different. So here the Squidor Polo on the top and the Inkerlight vest on the bottom use the same test placeholders with just different colors. So I think that's interesting how even though they use the same placeholders, they actively went and changed the color of the second one to go more in line, or at least to tell the difference. I guess that's why, is to so that when they see them together they don't get confused of which one is. So I guess it makes a bit more sense, but obviously just a version later they were changed to their original designs, 1.0.0, 1.1.0. Now we move on to early versions of the shoes, and this has the least amount compared to the headgear and the clothing. Here we have the suede gray lace-ups that were introduced in version 3.0.0, but they actually used a less detailed version of the suede nation lace-ups in version 2.0.0, and the gear entry is work in progress and the brand is set to zinc. Speaking of zinc, we have the chocolate Dacronics from version 3.0.0, and these were actually created pretty early on, as they're from version 1.0.0, where they were colored yellow and blue, and they have a placeholder gear entry. Back to Eminence, here we have the Milky Imperials and the Navy Imperials. The Milky Imperials on the top didn't really have a texture until version 2.1.0 is when they were introduced. But way back in 1.0.0, they didn't have a model. Their model wasn't textured. But then down here, the Navy Imperials were introduced in version 2.0.0, but were first from 1.2.0, but they had the Milky Imperials with a blue subcolor instead of red. So these ones are always so confusing. Trying to explain these Eminence ones, especially these shoes, kind of confusing because the Navy ones look like the Milky, and the Milky don't have a model or a texture, so it's kind of confusing. In version 2.0.0 we got the yellow Iramaki 750s, but in 1.2.0 they were black Norimaki 750s with pink to sky blue soles. These are probably my favorite piece of gear in this entire video. These right here, the coloring with the pink and sky blue soles, I love this. Not so much the design of the shoe, but the coloring I love. With that design actually kinda goes pretty hard. Next two we have the Squid Kid 5s, the red and white on top and then the honey and orange on the bottom. Now the red and white Squid Kids, the coloration is still relatively the same, but if you see, the designs for them are a lot more basic than the ones we got in the base game. And the brand is set to Tenatech. But as for the honey and orange Squid Kids, the color was a lot different. It looks more of like the Marina type of blue. But they were ultimately changed into the orange and honey that we have now, and I love this color combination. That looks so clean. The Honey and Orange Squid Kid 5s look so clean. I love like that deep orange with the yellow. It's so good. Here we have the Anaki Tigers introduced in version 3.0.0, but in version 2.1.0 they were a light brown colored version of the Anaki Habaneros. The gear entry is work in progress with the ability set to sub power up. Here we have probably one of the biggest changes, the no boots replica in version 3.1.0, but in version 3.0, just barely before that, they were a pair of yellow roller skates. So, I mean, it kind of makes sense why they changed that, because that would just look goofy. Just the Octarian, the enemy Octarian just rolling around on roller skates. That'd be kind of funny, but it would be hella goofy. We have here an early version of the Neo Octoling boots, two of them actually. This first one we see on the left, it's the one we have now except lacking the belts and with much more basic texture. And then the one on the right is an even earlier version than that, but we only have a texture for that. It just has the text new found on it. This one I actually think is kind of cool. I know you can't really tell the difference between the three here because there really isn't any. The only difference is that the final version all the way on the right is just angled slightly different. The rotation at which the camera is looking at it is different. That's really the only difference. But what I found cool is that in Salmon Run, we got a new enemy in Splatoon 3 called the Flipper Flopper. So it's kind of cool that they share a name. Not that it really has anything to do with each other. As soon as I saw these, I thought of the Salmon Run enemy. Now we're moving on to the Unused gear. And to start off, it's actually pretty cool. Here we have the Legend cap from Splatoon directly ported from it. The models can be found in the base 1.0.0 files, and it has a placeholder gear entry beyond still being a part of the Cuddle Gear brand. This gear is a special case in that it actually has a name entry in the message file, which means it may have been shifted over to a Salmon Run reward fairly late in development. It seems they may have considered bringing it back without Grisco branding, as a new unisex model was added in version 2.1.0. It's mostly similar to the final cap of Legends, but the texturing is completely different. The gear entry was updated to support more hairstyles and to use the new unisex model. Although these two are slightly different, I'm going to include them in the same slot because of a common thing they have. So the first one here is a Kodo cap from Splatoon 1, and the second one is a street style cap that we never got in game. But this third one over here on the right, the green one, it's just a generic color changing cap that's possibly a template model type of hair. That can be found in version 3.0.0 actually, because we have quite a lot of hats that just look like this, just regular brimmed hats. So it would make sense for them to just make one template that they for all of the caps. These ones are just a basic textures for what was supposed to be a beanie and then a model for bandanas. Now the bandana here has the same base model as the Fish Fry Biscuit bandana and Black Fish Fry bandana. But the bandana and the beanie are their completely own separate things that weren't really ever used for anything. But an interesting thing about these bandanas is that it has a work in progress gear entry with a placeholder price and the brand being Tenatech and the ability being set to Tenacity, despite us never getting this in game actually. This is probably the most interesting entry in the entire video. This is an infamous mask modeled after the final boss of Octo Expansion, NILS or Annihilus. The model is first found in version 3.0.0 and has a gear entry that was removed in 3.1.0. The gear entry indicates that it was intended to be another piece of unlockable reward gear in Octo Expansion. Notably, the entry for this was replaced with the Teddy Band in Splatoon 3, marked the only time throughout the entire series where a gear piece's ID has been replaced. So, I know this has been covered before, but this mask would have been really cool to have in the base game, and it could just be used to show that you completed Octo expansion, just like, you know, being able to play as Octolings in Splatoon 2. So not really sure why they took this out. It would have been a cool mask to have. It would have been kind of creepy too, to like get splattered by someone and then you see them wearing that. That would have been cool. But unfortunately we didn't. And even the name, this is kind of off topic, but the name for the statue, NILS, kind of sounds like nihilist. A nihilist is a person who believes that life is meaningless and rejects all religion and moral principles. Which, if you think about it, kind of goes hand in hand with Tartar, who he thinks that Inkling and Octoling life is worthless and he's trying to wipe them all out to create his ultimate life form. So the mask and the, I guess, statue that he operates being called NILS, kind of sounding like nihilist, is a really cool fitting detail that I haven't heard anyone talk about. So I thought that was a pretty good detail that I should include. Okay, so I just showed a lot of just test stuff, since, I mean, I didn't really have to explain any of that. There was really no need to. It was kind of self-explanatory. They're just test models. But these next ones are actually so cool. They're actual real life collaborations. So the first ones here on the left are Nike collaboration shoes made for the Japan newest versus most popular Splatfest add-in 3.0.0. They're a replica of the real-life Nike Air Max 95s that were only used in a promotional render alongside an unobtainable shirt. Players got the Sea Slug Volt 95s, which are meant to be reminiscent of the actual shoes without using the Nike branding. The gear entry is placeholder and the brand is set to no brand. So that's actually pretty cool. And then the second ones here over on the left are Nike collaboration shoes made for the Japanese newest and most popular Splatfest, again added in 3.0.0. A replica of the real-life Nike Air Max 270s that were only used in a promotional render alongside an unobtainable shirt, while players got the Sesame Salt 2070s, or 270s, which are meant to be reminiscent of the actual shoe without using the Nike branding. The gear entry is placeholder, and the brand is set to no brand. So it's really cool that we got actual Nike collaborations, yet we never got the actual shoes in game. Like, if we actually did get these, bro, I'd be wearing the shit out of these the Air Max 270s right here on the left or on the right. That coloration, I love the white, black, and like turquoise color. I guess that's why I like Marina so much. That color combination is very clean. So next is one of the more interesting parts of the video, and this is unobtainable gear. Now, while the developers only ever released the Octolite goggles through Salmon Run, leftover files indicate that the rest of the Octolite set was planned to be released as well. They're completely finished with their own icons and name entries in the message files, but for whatever reason we never got the set. Also, the only other non-promotional gear from Splatoon aside from the Octolite set that was never released was the Tentacles helmet. Oddly enough, it was shown off in the trailer for 3.0.0, indicating they had plans to release it. Just like the Octolite set, it's completely finished with its own icon and name entry in the message files, but again, for whatever reason, they never released this one. As for more Octoling stuff, even though the Octoling shades used by elite Octolings are never meant to be used by players, they have their own icon for player usage. And even more curious, when they're forcefully equipped, the game seems to intentionally block the kelp physics. So I'm not too sure why the game is so hard pressed against the Octoling shades here. And these three pieces are kind of iffy. They're a little confusing. But while the gear itself technically isn't unused or unobtainable, as it's used in scenarios where no specific gear is called for, all three actually have real gear meshes set to not display. These pieces of gear likely date back to the well-known rabbit prototypes of the original Splatoon. So, putting this on hold for a second, if y'all don't know, Splatoon went through a lot of development, as we know, but some of the earliest concepts for Splatoon, the original game, was that we were originally supposed to play as like rabbits, like rabbit animals, and then once that got shot down, they were going to opt for Mario characters, and you can actually see a screenshot of Yosh here in Splatoon, which is just so funny. And then eventually decided to reside on the squids and octolings that we have now. But even before that, there was this other different type of design for the squid that just looked kind of off before we finally got what we have now. So these three pieces of gear were created way back when we were supposed to be playing as fucking rabbits. That's so insane. And these hidden meshes are in the first game's invisible gear as well. The visor except in a different color and can be seen in the development screenshot. So damn, that's actually really cool that you can even see on the visor there is like a little rabbit pin to kind of just show how old these pieces of gear are. Oh my god. So I guess these are going to be like the default gear that we start with. You know, whenever we start a game, we have the default gear. And I think this visor was going to be that. And the fake contacts also have a hidden piece of gear, that being the original game's white headband. Before we start anything, we actually have a clip from Splatoon 3. So apparently this Splatoon stamper originally had a charge hold function, kind of like Nautilus or chargers. And this was brought to my attention by Grey Pig on Twitter. He let me know, or they let me know about this clip, so here it is. Now, if you remember in one of my previous videos, I talked about how Gobi Arena, Manta Maria, and Snapper Canal all had like very early designs, I guess, beta designs. Now we also have another one here, but for a humpback pump track. And this one is a lot more finished, but it has some differences. As you can see here, over on the right, there is a ramp here that isn't in the final game, and even up over that ledge, the ground over there is a lot more flat. So that little ramp right there on the right typically pops up more in the final version, but it's more flatter. As long as just that whole area over there is a lot more flatter. And that really seems to be about the major difference, is that the two ramps right there, the first one down on the lower level is just completely gone in the base game, and then the ramp right above it is a lot more parallel to the ground, I should say. It's not parallel, but it's more parallel than it is in the final game. I actually like this one a lot. Here, this one is an early teaser for Salmon Run, and there's quite a few differences. So starting up at the top left, we can see that the chum here were originally going to be purple with yellow clothes and hair, I guess, as opposed to the green with orange hair in the base game. So that's a big difference. I feel the orange and yellow fits a bit more, maybe because I'm just used to that, but the yellow and purple would have been interesting to see. And then just below that, we see the lobby for a Grisco, where here we can see the Inkling sitting in a chair, as in the base game we're just standing. So I actually would have liked the chair. That would have been a cool addition. Now here at the bottom we can see the size difference. I don't know if this is supposed to be a scale of like a size proportion, but the Inkling is really small here compared to the Chum, which are massive. And here we can see again that purple and yellowish green variant here right next to the original. And then next to that seems like an even earlier version where the hair is actually a lot shorter. This looks more like little Buddy. I think this is actually supposed to be a small Frye. We can see it's very different from what we have in base game, and even the griller This is a very early version of the griller with the chum just fully sticking out as opposed to it having a lid over it with just all the tails coming out in a circle. It looks like he's actually being cooked in a stew right here. So, I mean, I can understand why they changed that one. And in here we have two versions of the steelhead. The first one right here looks kind of disgusting because there's nothing on its head. It's just this bare head, so it looks uncomfortable. And then this one over here just has a frying pan. So a lot of these bosses went over a lot of redesign before the game came out. One case where it hasn't so much is the stinger right here on the right. Only thing that's really different is all like the pots that it's sitting on. They're more uniform, I guess. But this entire image is just really interesting to look at to see how early how all of the early concepts for Salmon Run look, because I love Salmon Run. It's probably my favorite game mode right after Rainmaker, but seeing early Salmon Run stuff is always so great to see. And before we get on to the part I'm most excited for, the videos and actual footage of the cut content and stuff, I actually have a little montage here of some environment and map files in the game. So it replaces the Octo Canyon stuff with stuff from the Global Test Fire demo. So these files and everything were in the game way back in the Global Test Fire. So I'm gonna have a little montage of those right here. Now we're going to get on to some unused and very early versions of some specials actually. And we actually have all the ones, or quite a bit of them, returning from Splatoon 1 that were actually considered but never used in the game. First, we're going to start off with the bomb rushes. And this first one's actually pretty interesting. Now this one's actually pretty interesting. First off, you can see off rip, we have the hero shot here that the Inklings are using. And not just any hero shot, this is the hero shot from Splatoon 1, which isn't even in Splatoon 2. So they were still using a lot of Splatoon 1 assets to test the stuff from Splatoon 2, which makes sense, because why not use the stuff you already have instead of creating brand new stuff? And it's just easier to test with the Splatoon 1 stuff. But the part that confused me is, what was even the point? Like, I know this didn't make it in game, thankfully, but a sprinkler launcher, that is just terrible, because you can't have more than one sprinkler out at a time anyway. So you're just throwing all those sprinklers for them to do absolutely nothing, just for you to only use one of them. Now, they could have changed this as to make the only the sprinkler launcher, make it to where you can have multiple sprinklers out at once. So if you were to use the sub, you can only have one out at once. But if you use the special sprinkler launcher, then you can have as many as you can throw out at once. And there's just sprinklers all over the whole map, but it only worked for a sprinkler launcher. They could have done that, but I don't know how broken that would be. That would be stupid for Splat Zones, especially for like Gobi Arena and Mako Mart, because you can just throw them up on like the stuff on the ceiling and they can just stay up there and you can't reach them, so they're just all over the damn zone. That would have been kind of cool, but you can kind of see why Sprinkler Bomb Rush didn't make it in. It's practically useless. I actually think this one is cool and kind of disappointed it didn't make it into the game. Now, yes, Toxic Mist isn't the greatest sub, but this would actually be insane as a bomb rush, because this would work for almost every game mode, not necessarily to slow down enemies, which it would do, but just to set as like a screen. All right, it's just like a big cloud of fog. You can't even really see through it. So you can use that to kind of trick your opponents to kind of like sneak in for like clam blitz. Well, maybe obviously they'd be able to see like the icon of the clam and the rainmaker, but for like tower control and splat zones, that'd be so dumb. You could just hide in the mist and just push objective, or you could just throw it like at their spawn point, so, or near their spawn point, so you can like basically cover their view of the map and they can't really see you. There's so many different things you could use it for. This would actually be a really cool special, because yes, it would slow them down since there's a whole lot and they're stuck in it, so they can't run away, so you can kill them easily, and it'd kind of be hard for you to see as well. But then you can just throw a point sensor or run thermal link or haunt or whatever. But also, it would just set as a big like wall, a screen, so they can't really see you and what you're doing. So that would be dangerously scary. Now, if you notice with all of these, the special icon is always just the 10 missiles, so that's not really of anything to note. But you can tell this is an early version of the auto bomb launcher, because first of all, it has absolutely no sound for throwing it out or when it activates. Because normally when it activates and it like sees an enemy, I guess, and it activates, it'll make a little sound. That never happened. And even the like detection radius, I guess, is massive on these. They are not that big in any of the games. All right, that's huge. And if you notice near the end, they actually hop instead of like waddle over towards the enemy. So this is a very early version of the auto bomb launcher, and it's actually kind of charming. And speaking of auto bombs, we can see it here. Yeah, this really was an early version of the auto bombs. All right, and what throws me off and just irks me is that the audio is not synced. All right, the sound of when it's like building up to explode and then explodes is so unsynced from the actual animation. It kind of throws me off a little bit. But you can see here how they kind of just like waddle or hop instead of like waddle over like they do in the base game. couple interesting things about the baller here is that obviously it has no sound when it explodes or rolls around, but it also has like this hexagonal pattern on it, and it doesn't have the stripes either, but it's like a giant dome, not giant, but it's like a dome with all these hexagonal patterns on it. It's kind of trippy, but I like it. Okay, was Burst Bomb Launcher ever that fast in the main game? Oh my god, that was like, hew, 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 hew. That was quick. I don't really have anything to say for this one. If I don't have anything to say, I'm gonna just play the next clip. I don't want to drag it on out and just talk after every clip if I don't need to, because y'all would rather see the content and not hear me talk. So, but yeah, I don't think Burst Bomb was that fast, or Burst Bomb Launcher. This one's just uncomfortable, bro. Why does it sound like that? And why does it look like that? Yeah, Bubble Blower looked nasty here. All right, and something I just noticed in this clip, I don't know if it's in the other ones, but the points in the top right, they just keep on going up even when they're not inking any turf. The points are just steadily rising. All right, I don't know if that's intentional, but it's just something I couldn't help but notice. So here's my baby just played Splatoon for the first time moment, but this is my first time actually ever seeing echolocator. All right, this is cool. This is like point sensor, but a special, which I'm pretty sure they changed this into point sensor and made it a sub. But when you use echolocator, does it tag the whole party? Like, does it tag all the enemies for yourself, just for yourself, or for the rest of your teammates? Because I know, assuming it's for the rest of the teammates, just like how point sensor works. But a lot has been changed between 1 and 2, so I'm not really too sure how echolocator works. I'm not too well versed on Splatoon 1 stuff since I just got it recently, so I still have to learn everything about that. Now this is probably the most interesting one out of all of them, is Kraken. All right, now it's assumed that Kraken was replaced with Baller since they both technically do the same thing. They allow you to like get in close to your enemies and like chase them down and just kill them and then back out without really being in too much danger, since you can't kill a Kraken and it takes quite a bit to destroy a Baller. But everything about this video is just so insane. Okay, first, of course, the damn ink brush has Kraken. Imagine if ink brush had Kraken in Splatoon 3. That would be very stupid and scary. And second, what is happening when they go into Kraken? Because it looks like they're running. First of all, they go invisible because they don't have a model for Kraken yet, but they still have the general parameters for it. When they're swimming, it looks like they're walking, but you can see that they're swimming right as they come up out of it. So, and then other times they'll like dip down under the map. So I'm not really too sure what that whole thing is about. Are they like charging? Are they jumping? I'm not really too sure what that's about. But it looks like the game at some point was going to encourage us to like look at the map, because when you see when they fall into the water and die, it says open the map with X. So maybe that's just a dev thing, but that also could be them encouraging us to, you know, check our map when we're dead to try to see where teammates are at, see where enemies are at, check the map, or just jump. Because a lot of players, most players don't use their maps like at all a single time in a match. So, you know, they went through to created this whole like interactive map to show in everything in real time, and people don't really use it. So they kind of, you have that prompt there to encourage us to check the map, which, you know, y'all should be checking the map. Whenever you have any downtime in a match, doesn't matter the game mode, if you have any downtime or don't know what to do or just don't know where your teammates or enemies are at, look at the map. Please just use the map. It's going to be so helpful. I know it's kind of tough to look in the map in such a high-paced game where you have to be aware and of your surroundings at all times, but when you do it, you'll start getting used to it. Just like checking the map every couple seconds, even just like breaking it up for a couple seconds, glance at it, bring it down, and go back to doing what you were doing. Make sure you use the map. It is going to help out a lot once you get good at looking at the map and using the information that the map can give you. It's just a button press away. It's very quick to bring it up and put it back down. So use your map, please. So this is also my first time seeing Seeker, and it's actually kind of insane. Now, yes, obviously this was reworked in the curling bomb, as it has the same charge function to where if you charge it, it goes less of a distance but has a bigger explosion radius, which you should also be charging your curling bombs. All right, I main curling bomb weapons in Splatoon 3. Luna Blaster Neo doesn't have curling bomb, but Heavy Edit and Paintbrush have curling bomb, and I never see anyone ever charge their curling bombs. All right, it is so helpful. I think a lot of people just forget that it even can be charged, but charging your curling bomb will help you out in so many situations. To just say if an enemy's closer to you, you can charge it to go that shorter distance. You don't always have to throw it at its max distance. Or just like fully charging it, throwing it over a ledge, that helps a lot too. Or use it to cover zone by fully charging it. And like, there's so many different utilities and applications for charged curling bombs that it's sad that no one really ever uses it. But that's enough of me ranting about using maps and curling bombs and stuff. But I just had to get that out there. This one's interesting as the video is titled Umbrella Compact in parentheses undercover. So apparently this was the undercover umbrella and it was supposed to launch its shield like the other umbrellas. But interestingly, why is it so fast? Why is the umbrella so fast? Like the shield just zooms and the damage on it is also very weird. So it looks like it doesn't deal damage unless it's very close. It looks like it's like distance based because at first when we saw they shot it, it didn't really do damage, just pushed them out the way. But then when they were right on them and they had the shield out, it killed them. And then the one inkling right there in the middle, it killed them. So I think it was just based on the distance you were from the shield. I don't know. That was very confusing. Apparently this was an early model of the tent umbrella, which you can kind of see the difference already with the shield actually stays out a hell of a lot longer than the undercover did. It still travels pretty fast, not as fast as the undercover shield, but the umbrella shield stays out for a lot longer, and it looks like it has the same like wonky hitbox that the undercover has as well, where it damages like point blank range, but from a distance it just pushes you out the way, whereas 10th umbrella shield in the final games actually deal damage if you touch them when they're like moving along the ground. Next, we actually get on to unused enemies, which is pretty interesting. Now, mind you, there are a lot, and I mean a shit ton of unused enemies, but only very few of them have videos that are still available. So I'm going to be showing the ones where I could find a video for them. All the other ones I will cover at a later date if I can find videos to show them off. But to start off, we have an enemy called ENM Donketsu. It's an unused Octo Canyon enemy. It deals 30 damage and has high knockback, has infinite health but will take high knockback when hit. It lacks an entry and actor DB. This one is titled Enemy Ink Rail, an unused Octo Canyon enemy. It deals 100 damage. It's set to 70 health, but also has been set to disallow defeating it. It also lacks an entry and actor DB. This one you have probably seen before. This one is called Enemy Shin Octa, an unused Octo expansion enemy. It uses a sanitized Octo Trooper model and shoots at the player using stingrays from its eyes, regular bullets, bubble shots, splat bombs, and can use splashdown. Its model is scaled up. Its model is scaled up by 10 on the X and Z axis and 11 on the Y axis. It has 8,000 health. This enemy is called Enemy Taco Nyoki, an unused Octo Canyon enemy. It deals 50 damage and shoots bouncing shots, has 70 health and lacks an entry and actor DB. This enemy is actually kind of special. It's called Taco Pod Dev, an unused Octo Canyon enemy. It deals 100 damage upon exploding and has 500 health. It lacks an entry and actor DB, but went on to be used in Splatoon 3 as the oversized octopod enemy. This enemy is called Taco Tank, an unused Octo Canyon enemy. It deals 50 damage upon impact with its shield and has 140 health, along with 800 health on its shield. It lacks an entry in Actor DB. Now, a lot of these are unused animations. Now, the majority of them are actually just poses, so I'm not really going to go over those, although I will talk about a couple of my favorites. But to start, we have this. Here we have actually two animations of Marina, one over here on her left being her leftover pose from Octo Expansion trailer, and the one on the right being her leftover weight animation from the Octo Expansion trailer. Lastly, here, three of my favorite Pearl poses out of all of the ones here. These three are my favorite. My MC Princess right here. If you couldn't tell, Pearl has grown a lot on me over the last like month or so. All right, a little bit thanks to side order, but well, it's all thanks to side order. Before, I did used to clown on her like everyone else. I admit it, I was one of them, but now I love Pearl and she's up there, very high on the list for my favorite idols. All right, it goes Frye, then probably Pearl, Marina, Marie. You know, Pearl is top three, okay? Marina, Frye, and Pearl are my top three. But Frye is obviously number one. But I like Pearl a lot, especially these poses, this outfit.